One of the great things about your generation is you're so media savvy. You guys own this new media, and this is the way we're going to get the message out, grassroots, word of mouth. But ultimately, it's about y'all voting. And so when I say, I'm running, I'm a dad of 5. Look, my kids are right behind your generation. My eldest is 12. I'm upset because this is not the U.S. I was born into.
Well, Paul, thank you so much for joining the Cameron Brown Show today. Hope you're doing well.
Great to be with you, Cameron. Excited, yes.
Awesome. Very, very excited for this. It sounds like you're on the road a lot right now, traveling around a bunch. Obviously, with a lot going on right now in preparation for June 9th. How have things been?
Well, that's right. I'm running for United States Senate here to retire Lindsey Graham, to take this seat back for us, the people of South Carolina. It's great. I mean, moving around the state is the most fun of the whole job, meeting people. We're on the road. I think we have about 160 events teed up between now and June 9th. We've already done a good 100 plus. So it's, meeting people all over where they are, hearing their issues, and, really appreciating how wonderful a state we have, how much potential there is here, but how much neglect, I have to say, has happened. We deserve to be living a lot better than we are.
So 160 events, and you decided to jump on for an hour with me. I appreciate that, to say the least.
Well, look, I'm running for your generation. I'll be frank. This is, I can't press every palm. I'm going to try to, but one of the great things about your generation is you're so media savvy. You guys own this new media, and this is the way we're going to get the message out, grassroots, word of mouth. But ultimately, it's about y'all voting. And so when I say, I'm running, I'm a dad of 5. Look, my kids are right behind your generation. My eldest is 12. And I'm upset, because this is not the U.S. I was born into. What happened the last 20, 30 years, and you all suffered the worst of it, was really an abomination. They assaulted so much of middle America to redesign this place, to basically remake the look of the U.S., but also, dissolve our national borders. And in the interim, your generation, the Zoomers, have really taken it by the chin. So I'm standing up to fight that, and I'm excited about, being able to be on media, particularly like shows like this.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate us starting off on that note, because there's plenty of those frustrations that I'm probably going to bring up during this next hour as well, just to make sure we address those accordingly. Just to start, though, I kind of want to go back to the beginning, but can you give us just a better understanding of where you come from, and also a little bit more about your educational background, MIT, law school, et cetera, all that fun stuff. Let's start there, and then we'll proceed into the fun questions after that.
Sure. Well, I'm a dad of 5. I am an identical twin. My parents, we were what I call pure-blooded deplorables. So come from the working stock that have built this country. I'm the grandson of a textile mill worker. My parents were the first in their families to go to college. My mom was a public school teacher, and my dad, rose from poverty to be a professor of medicine at Johns Hopkins. So I grew up in Maryland. My dad was in the military, and we were moving around. But from second grade on, I've always lived south of the Mason-Dixon. I went K through 12 public schools, and they were very good back then. I grew up in the 80s during the Cold War, and this was really intent on making us the best we could be. And I'll talk more about some of my remembrances, but what I think we have to refocus on public schools here in South Carolina. But I went on to MIT, on scholarships. I was paid by the UAW. I'm the first generation not to be in the union. And my grandfather, he was a merchant marine out at sea. A seafarer, was a marine engineer. And like I said, all my mom's family were these mechanic types, who when fought, they actually landed on D-Day and behind enemy lines during World War II. So I come from, a kind of a tradition of war fighters, just kind of blue collar guys. And when I was at MIT, I saw this whole deindustrialization going down in real time. And this was the beginning of what really the malaise that has beset us for the last 30 years, essentially this globalization, moving the factories abroad, leaving the working class in the lurch, and, the things taking its place were, basically social welfare schemes and drugs. You know, it was, but in the old days, it was a lot of more heroin and that sort of abuse, but now it's Oxycontin, Codone, and the whole list.
And social media too.
Social media. You know, social media came on. You know, I was obviously an analog generation guy, so they talk about us growing up in the 80s, drinking from garden hoses, and, you know, our parents would let us out. Our neighborhoods were safe, you know. It was a different time. But I think, you know, at the risk of kind of sounding like an old timer, I really do believe the last 20 years vastly accelerated the decline. And, you know, till we got to an absurd point where men are pretending to be women, and vice versa. It's a kind of obscene thing. But basically went on to law school at the University of Virginia, and was big there in the president of the Federalist Society. No one in my family were lawyers, but I became a constitutional conservative there. I was twice elected the president of the Federalist Society. But, you know, you come out of these schools with massive debt, and that's the question, how do you pay it off? I went up to New York City with these big firms, hoping to chip away at that debt, worked on the big cases. Best thing that came out of New York was meeting my wife, who's a Carolina girl, grew up in Charlotte, but she was recruited to New York City Ballet. She's a prodigy, if you will. At 15, she got a full scholarship to go up there to school American Ballet, and then became pro at 16. So that's like the top in the world. Wow. And in the sea of blue up there, I ran into her, and it was a blessing. She became pretty famous later on. She would retire from the ballet, go to Columbia University, and then start training Natalie Portman for this award-winning role, the Academy Award in Black Swan. So Mary Helen developed a lot of online fitness. She's an influencer, but she's really the leading face of bar fitness worldwide. So we developed platforms back in 2012 that were online, similar to what you would call Zoom today, but allowing her to train all over the world, also streaming workouts. Even before they had Netflix, we were running her streaming workouts. So we were selling in 130 countries. That was really the fun part. We started having kids, and it became clear we had to get to a place where family values were paramount. We had gotten married on Johns Island 20 years ago, and really loved the low country. And we said, if we're blessed enough to have kids, we're coming back here, and we're going to set up. And that's essentially how it happened. I was working with her. I was a Trump guy from the jump. I was always a fan of Trump. And he started making rustlings about running in 2012. I had given up on politics. You know, I was one of these, I was H. Ross Perot guy, never a Republican kind of country club person, but the Democrats had left us, right? My parents were kind of Kennedy-esque working class Democrats. Ask not what your country can do for you, but for what you can do for your country. They literally met in Washington, D.C. During Kennedy years here, 63. So it was a gravitational move, but okay. Donald Trump was somebody who was threatening to break the system, and that was really exciting as an outsider. I always thought the only way we're ever going to get this back is getting beyond kind of this two-party for a real outsider. And so I got early on with Trump, volunteered with him in 15 and 16, time when Lindsey Graham's doing all of his malarkey, and we're looking at this guy going, this guy's a joke, but we love Trump. Helped him get elected, volunteered in Pennsylvania, thinking it would be, I'd be able to go into the administration. Right. I, at the time, was, a top corporate lawyer. I had actually helped solve big cases, like a $27 billion case for Chevron, just using my MIT problem solving and legal acumen from Virginia, and kind of dogged. I don't give up. I bite down like and don't release like a German Shepherd or something. But that's what I did, getting in. And finally we had the opportunity to join the admin in 2018. That's when we relocated down to Fort Mill, okay. Right by the in-laws. By then my in-laws had, I always joke they escaped communism. They left Charlotte-Mecklenburg and set over for Fort Mill. So, the whole family's kind of planting ourselves in South Carolina.
Right.
But that's where I come in. I was a Trump guy from the jump. I was one of his top appointees, and I became the actual swamp drainer, the guy who comes from outside of from Washington and upsets the apple cart.
I was there's a lot of accomplishments on the legal side of things too, and I've done a good bit of research on that side, and I would love to spend. Frankly, I feel like this is that. We probably need to wait till after June 9th to dive into all of the fun legal stories, because I feel like we could probably go for days and have that conversation. But is there one case, just aside from all the political questions, is there one case, though, maybe the Chevron case, that you think of as your biggest win or your biggest battle when you were during?
Yeah, it's the Chevron case. Okay. Like they've written 2 books about that. They're going to put a movie out, but that was really my cracking the code. Okay. What had happened there were, Chevron acquired Texaco back in the 60s. They used to extract oil down in Ecuador and South America and Central America. And some inventive plaintiff lawyers in the mid-90s had sued Texaco, which became Chevron, saying that they had polluted down in South America, and the result was all these birth defects and whatnot. In fact, it was a state-owned oil company that had done this. But the plaintiff lawyers got in league with the government of Ecuador, this kind of socialist regime, and they basically concocted a scheme whereby they would make a phony judgment against Chevron and then force them to settle. So for billions. And it looked like Chevron was going to be forced to do that. What they had done to put pressure on Chevron to settle was bring down a documentary film crew, like a Michael Moore type production, that was going to actually, for Academy Award sort of things, show about how bad this big American oil company was. And what happened was, for 2 years, they followed. This is during the height of virtual of reality TV, and they brought a crew down there. They filmed all their machinations and scheming, and then 600 hours over 2 years, but made a 2-hour movie. So I sued to get what they call the outtakes, the stuff on the cutting room floor. Most attorneys are like, you can't get that. There's qualified privilege. Anyways, we got the smoking gun evidence, drilled that down for 3 years, about 5,000 attorneys ultimately working on the case, but it proved my whole thesis that this thing was a big setup, a big broad daylight shakedown. And the important thing was the people on the other end, they're very smart, they're progressives. They are actually law school classmates of Barack Obama's, from Harvard Law School. So this is kind of what we're up against. This ends justifies the means. And so they will do anything to get to the proper end. But the coming out of that, I knew that I could face off with these people at the highest level and win. And it just really took, some degree of inspiration, genius, if you will, but really just putting your shoulder to the wheel. I work like 3,000 hours, 7 days a week. I kind of focus and grind. I wouldn't say, I have some gifts. Some people can actually focus and really get to the truth of it. But that's what we did, and it was a big success. But that would be the one case I think that stands out above all the rest.
I love it. You are also this is on this is public information. It's on the website. You talk about being the architect of Project 2025 pretty frequently, and Project 2025 in and of itself has obviously been a bit of a sticking point, it seems like, over the past couple of years, especially, but mainly in 2024, as obviously the Democrats used it as great leverage, seemingly against Trump. President Trump then kind of backed away from it publicly, but obviously has followed through with a lot of the things that were mentioned in Project 2025 throughout the duration of this particular phase of his presidency. But I want to ask you on that part specifically, with everything that was included in Project 2025, how do you feel like it has been executed up to this point? Because it has obviously been followed, it seemingly, at least to a certain degree. Some parts are criticized, but how do you feel like it's been executed up to this point?
Well, I think but for Project 2025, Trump 47 would not have come out of the gates gangbusters like they did. Look, independent estimates put it at 80% of what they're doing in the second term has its genesis in our kind of communal work there.
Right.
And to be sure, a lot of this was carrying on from the first Trump term. But what really put Project 2025 on the map, which upset the left, they knew that we were, quote, over the target, as they say in Washington, and that's what brought all the flack on, was that we had finally systematically prepared for when we take power to use it and to move out and not be twiddling our thumbs, but to just come hard, like wave after wave after wave. So, yeah, I'm very proud of the work we did. It ultimately, it was with the Trump campaign. I was integrally involved with helping them, and they got the first 6 copies of the book. We can explain to the audience how this actually was structured, but the net result was, I think it gave us a roadmap. It really is the architecture of how you can kind of move. And some people critique it for not going hard enough. People are like, but had it not been there would have just been kind of the same missed opportunity I think you saw in Trump 1 with Paul Ryan and how they went after the president with the fake Russia hoax. Basically, they're trying to run the clock out. We have possession of the ball, and we have to score. And if you don't have the plays ready to run, what's the point, So that's what I did. I was the architect of it. I was like a standout appointee for President Trump in his first term. One of these people he calls his killers, right? So, but I got in late, and I realized that we had met the enemy, and it was us, as they say, that so many of our side were not ready to go balls to the walls, to do the stuff we had to do. And in order to get that done the next time, we had to recruit people from the outside. We had to show them what's going on in Washington. We had to put out kind of a book that said, this is what we believe in the main, and this is how you think about these agencies, and this is maybe a goal to shoot for. And then finally, we had to put an actual 180-day roadmap, like a playbook together. So we systematically did that. The Heritage Foundation was my sponsor for it. And I brought together, with the help of others, over 110 conservative groups, thousands of volunteers, preparing 25 plans, which were fed right into the bloodstream.
Right. Why do you?
But the left attacked it because, look, I put the source code for the deep state right there. It's like, right. I went right at the damn thing and said it's personnel, it's the laws that work up here, it's these people who are embedded. There's a total political class. The thing is broken, and if we're ever going to seize power, we have to kind of mow down the deep state.
Right. Do you think, just to be kind of, I guess, a little bit critical here, Trump backed away pretty aggressively from being attached to Project 2025? Is that because the left was utilizing it and criticizing it enough to make him want to back away from it, from a publicly speaking, or what was the main reason he backed away from it, in your opinion?
No, I think quite the opposite. I think he was comfortable with it. To be fair, he is there about winning, right? The guy has tunnel vision, and look, if he hadn't gotten off the map there in Butler, the mat in Butler, PA, and said fight, 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 none of this would have happened. So thank God for President Trump. But yeah, I think the people who engendered the knocking of it were actually so-called, brothers in arms or fellow soldiers. It's the right itself. Like, there is a power struggle amongst siblings, and that's where you have some of his campaign advisors saying to knock it. But at the same point, look, we were ready for that. We wanted the ideas to be taken hold of, and that's ultimately, there's a saying in Washington, if you don't mind who gets credit for something, there's no limit to what you can achieve, and that's what we've done, I think.
Love it. I love it. With the we'll just jump into the Middle East right now. Let's just go ahead and go there, because it's obviously on top of everybody's mind, and it's all over the place. And I can't get on social media without seeing some kind of misinformation, or I guess information that you think is real, and then you send it to a friend, and it immediately gets flagged as false. I've got a friend that was in Iran for a while, actually recently, and just recently got out. And I even sent him something today, and he goes, "That's false. That's not even true." It's the bombing of the synagogue in Tehran. He was like, "I've already talked to a friend. The synagogue is actually still there." I was like, "Are you sure?" So it's wild how much information we're taking in on a daily basis around this particular conflict in the Middle East. But your opponent, Senator Graham, has been a huge fan of pushing this particular war. And I think a lot of people are really tired of it. And me being one of them. We're tired of the endless wars. We're tired of the endless wars, especially in the Middle East. And so I guess I want to just ask, how are you going to be different? And how are we actually going to end these wars, while it seems like the administration, while they did run on ending the wars, seems to be prolonging these wars at this time?
Look, I'm going to be the Republican senator from South Carolina, not the uniparty senator from Israel. I'm here for us, South Carolina and America first. And, I'm tired of it too. Really, look, we in this country, we've been blessed with a lot, but we've also given a lot, and our lives have been greatly degraded over the last 30 years. We have to get back on our feet. With respect to Lindsey Graham's machinations, I don't think there would have been this war. I think that he's one of the bad voices in the president's head. And you see this with every war. He's doing the same thing with Ukraine. He's the guy who pushed, the Syria attacks. Go down the line. He's always for kinetic violence. And it's bizarre, really. At the same point, like, we have 2,000 people dying of opioid deaths in South Carolina. Like, when are you going to actually focus on what's happening here at home? People are dying on the vine, and you're rooting to put another $50 billion for the retirees in Ukraine. It's absurd. So look, I'm done with that. I stood up to stop World War III. These guys, I mean, it's getting pathologically insane to focus on this sort of thing when we have these problems here at home. And it's high time we had an America First perspective, which, first, let's lock down our own Western Hemisphere. We will take it from Terra del Fuego up to Greenland. I salute what the president did in Venezuela. Let's get these resources marshaled here for Americans. But we got to get Georgetown paper open again. We got to get steel here in the U.S. We're going to bring back textile manufacturing. If we didn't learn from COVID what happens with the supply shocks, this is insane that we're going and opening up all these kind of battles, because the Chinese are they're on the sidelines building ships, and they're actually infiltrating our country. Like, they freaking own 144,000 acres of land beneficially in South Carolina. They're actually invading us already. And people like Lindsey Graham, it's just a massive disconnect. And he will literally, I never talked about what's going on in South Carolina. It's always Israel this, Israel that.
I could be wrong with this too, but I don't know that I've heard him talk about China much, just in general.
Yeah, it is the dog that doesn't bark, right? But you say to yourself, at the end of the day, everything he advocates inures to the benefit of China. He's like, we need to give more munitions from the United States to Ukraine to basically fight this endless war that's just a war of attrition that, by the way, is killing white Christian against white Christian in the bed basket of Eastern Europe. Right. Which is the most asinine concept. If you want to start world poverty, that would be a way to do it. But when they say bring over the Javelin missiles, whatever, we can't use Javelin. They take 7 to 10 years to build a new one. Our entire defense capability, this military industrial that he profits from, they've just paid themselves huge amounts, and then they pay off their friends in Washington, but nothing actually gets built.
Paul, I do this to myself all the time, and I ask this question. I'm like, is it that simple though? Right? Is it just follow the money? And I just I feel like I fight internally, and I'm like, it's not. There's no way it's that simple that he's just being paid by an organization, and that's the reason that he's so pro war all the time. Is it that simple? Though?
I'm not a professional. I'm not a professional politician, but yeah, it is. I hate to say it. The money thing, it's power. Money and power. People are fighting their own personal demons. I don't know what drives this guy, but you can't do this politics thing without money, and idealism only goes so far. But they basically build this impenetrable web where everyone is in on it, and you're going to suffer if you don't play ball. So that's essentially how you build this one party state, which we are. I mean, it's like it's beyond, in South Carolina, it's corrupt, and it goes all the way to Washington. He's the head of the snake, and
Right.
this is a way that, I would like to say it wasn't power and money, but that's ultimately what this whole thing is. And people are blackmailed. Okay,
Right.
that's like, let's be real about this. This dude is.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I feel like that's the other thing for me too. Is like they got to get elected and they immediately get blackmailed. But it seems to be the case across the board, or something's going on because they say one thing and they get elected and it seems like things change dramatically.
I mean, I saw when I was in the federal government, first of all, that there was an entire intrusion of communist Chinese. All right. So it's all over, and other foreign countries. Obviously, Israel has a massive control on people. But yes, it's as simple as that. They really are kind of hooked on the power and blackmailed into taking positions. And, they protect one another. It really is this scheme. So if you're an outsider going to it, they bring full bear on you. That's
Right.
why they keep good people out. And I'm done with it. I'm going to stand up and fight. This is how our country got built, by people who are like, damn the torpedoes, I'm going forward.
Absolutely.
And I'm putting it on the line.
Well, you mentioned yourself as a deplorable earlier, and I'm not sure that I meet the same level of deplorable as you necessarily, but I would like to say that I criticize dramatically every single individual, regardless of who it is and regardless of the party, because I feel like that's the best way for us to hold our country accountable and hold our politicians accountable that we do elect and we put into office. And so I found myself doing that a lot as of late. And I guess my question for you as it relates to being critical, building out this plan especially, and then obviously wanting to see it implemented 100% because it's something that you were the architect of. As it relates to these wars, and then our president, and I'm once again, I don't want to get into criticizing too much here, but the truth from yesterday about the civilization truth that I'm sure you saw everywhere. Do you see that as a bargaining chip? Do you see that as a way to bring Iran to the table, or did you see that as something that maybe went a little bit too far?
Look, we didn't vote for endless wars. We voted to get America back on track, and I do think a lot of us were like, this is too far. And I've always supported the president. You'll not be finding me a bad word, but like, I didn't vote for Mark Levin. Okay, he's not MAGA. Nobody wanted to have these voices, Lindsey Graham, in the forefront. That's exactly why I went to support President Trump, because of these whack jobs, and to see them move in and actually hold sway. Look, you were talking earlier about the news, and we don't know what the truth is unless you're in a classified briefing room. And then even then, we don't know if they're getting the dodge themselves. That's how the whole Iraq thing started, right? WMDs.
Right.
They didn't tell the president the truth, or whatever the case is. But there's a small group of people who actually know the truth. Luckily, we get around it now with new media. But you have to be very suspicious and always challenging the status quo. And look, in the case of Iran, elementally, we were told last summer, Operation Midnight Hammer destroyed the nuclear threat, right? That there isn't any emergent threat against the United States. And when they keep changing the goalposts about we're doing this because of hypersonic missiles. Well, hypersonic missiles are everywhere. Okay, they're a threat to anyone from wherever. Okay, that's the whole point of hypersonic missiles. But the throwing gays off a roof is now the reason why we're going to do this, to end a civilization that's 3,000 years. Like, no, we did not. I'll go to the gas pump and it's $35 extra to fill up the SUV, right? What are people who are living on fixed incomes, people who actually have to drive for their work, the farmers, like, they don't get to buy wholesale gas. They're filling up their combines. It's $1,000 now.
Yeah.
This happened overnight. I mean, it's a small amount to pay. No, it's not. What do we get from this? This is billions and billions and billions of lost ability for us to get back on our feet. So, for what purpose? I'm sharply critical of the war. I'm a big supporter of President Trump, but it's like, wrap it up. We want to hit it and quit it, and we need to get safer here at home.
Yeah, I mean, I work mainly with service-based clients, and my one of my service businesses this morning I was talking with, who was filling up his tank on diesel. He's like, it's expensive. I'm like, I get it. I mean, you're trying to hold junk and remove junk from a local construction site, and take it to the landfill, and you now have to charge your client another $150 because how much more expensive gas?
Yeah, the price shock is the worst part, because it actually it's kind of like a freeze in the winter, when they have the citrus crops. You get that shock and the trees don't come back. You lose the fruit. Like, you look at what happened in COVID, all these businesses shut down. They didn't come back, right? COVID's over, but they're gone. And the same thing's going on. I was talking to a logging company, the top lumberjack in South Carolina, and he's out there in Florence, and his fuel bills for running the trucks doubled overnight. Okay, whatever profit he was making, now they're just keeping people at work for not going under, right. And at the same point they're closing the mills. This is how we end up losing an entire industry. And lumber isn't insignificant. Everyone lives off of that in the Low Country, and have for the last 200 years. Like, we import $28 billion of paper products from Canada, from Brazil, whatnot, and we have standing trees all over South Carolina. Asinine. Like, let's have a U.S. senator who says, no, we're not going to bring these other products into the Port of Charleston. And yes, if we have to support this paper mill, we're going to help them use 21st technology to actually have a clean burning paper mill. But we're not going to get rid of the paper industry. And if we have to carry these loggers for a bit, we're going to do that, because I'm sick of sending the money to Ukraine for their civil servants. I'm sick of putting illegals on, the social welfare net here, and I'm sick of importing H-1Bs to do our jobs. This is our country, and we got to take it back.
But yeah, and I guess just to that question, I think as a follow up to that, I really want to focus on South Carolina, and talk about especially our generation. It's kind of the next phase of this conversation too. Obviously, everything's getting more expensive. We've got AI coming in rapidly and seemingly taking over what a lot of jobs. Also should create a lot of opportunity as well, which would be awesome. And buying a house as a first-time home buyer is very difficult for those that are even, I guess, starting to get into their 30s as well. So what is the message to the younger generation in South Carolina especially?
Look, this boomer class traded away your inheritance. This is people lived and died and fought just for you to enjoy this life here at home. It's your home. We're going to take it back. And we're going to do that on a number of fronts. My entire focus is South Carolina first, putting this next generation on the right footing. I have 5 kids coming right behind you, and I have 3-part plan for that, really, for confronting the disruption from AI, but also bringing us back to the land. And I think that's, we live in this blessed agricultural economy, but we have to take it in the 21st century. At the same time, restore these core industries, so we can really live healthy lives, but come together as God intended. I'm really upset about the birth rate and the family formations and kind of the war that they've put men and women on. So I think we can always have a family first. So one, I want shop class back in every middle school and high school. Okay, your generation never knew it, but when I went to middle school, and everyone behind me, we did wood shop, metal shop, drafting, and you start working with your hands in 7th grade, and that formation. I want 21st century robotics. I want people problem solving as kids that is going to help them fix things in the future. So you graduate on to high school, where you're doing advanced robotics, state of the art stuff, welding, auto repair, HVAC, but really a whole group that's coming out to be plumbers and electricians, the jobs they can never take away from us. We're going to use those jobs to build South Carolina. We have the worst roads in the country. We have to build the grids. We can't build these ships. They want a $1.5 trillion sub, building and ships and not. They can't find the welders. They fly them in from Turkey and Romania. Absurd. They stay in all those roadside hotels. So we got to start with our own people, training them. They're working, they're not going to be doing the drugs. I mean, this is where the hopelessness comes from. Two, look, I want to put us back on the land. 21st Century Homesteading Act that's going to help the family farm come back. There's a whole bunch of octogenarian farmers who can't pass it on to the next generation. With the fuel now, they're having a hard time even farming. And a lot of we have Clemson, we have other schools that are top in the country with tech. We can put money in the hands of small farmers, 150-acre farmsteads, pay you to rehabilitate the houses. You go through rural South Carolina, these towns are all closed up. You're like, what happened here? Like, bring them back. We have high-speed cable and internet and that ability to do that, and satellite. You don't have to be fixed anymore. So I want to declare farmland critical infrastructure. I want to seize the land owned by the Chinese, put it in a constructive trust nationwide. This is one of the first acts I'm going to introduce when I get to the Senate. And we're going to basically stand up kind of communal agriculture around major population areas. So your first stop's going to be the farm stand to get the healthy food. We're going to eat well again. I talked to the seniors, and this little lady, fixed income, whatever, she's like, if the Walmart went away, she wouldn't know what to do. Right. She's out in Anderson, and she said, my friends and I talk about one day eating meat again. Meat, okay? That's absurd. We live in the United States. We take half of our beef in from like Argentina and Brazil and Australia. Forget that. It's an incredible statistic. 1970, they had 100,000 more head of cattle on South Carolina land than they do today, right? And we have 5 times the population or whatever. This, battle of cow pens. People know of cow pens. Cow pens was the turning point for the Southern campaign of the Revolutionary War. This is the patriotic land. This is like, real, this is where people fighting. But cow pens itself, what is that? That's a stockyard. The original stockyards of the United States were here in South Carolina. So I'm like saying, I want a steak on every plate, right? We're going to eat meat again. And believe me, I'm a red meat eater. So
make America
we're going
eat
to do
meat
that
again. Yeah.
because we're going to bring the cattle back, but all kinds of stuff. Poultry is our major producer, but also swine, and just really grow healthy food for South Carolina, kind of sustainable farming, and raw milk, whatever the case is, but very healthy living, and make it so that young couples can come together and basically do this. And then 3, I want a nationwide crime bill. Basically, nobody should be living in fear to live in the cities or in rural America. And there's just too many bad elements out there. We have to throw the book at people, not just the migrant crime, but the youth crime. This is unacceptable. We have to bring back law and order. If it means bringing the National Guard to Myrtle Beach, we'll do it. But no one should be afraid to go to Myrtle Beach. It was made for the families.
Right.
So this is I envision a South Carolina that is going to be tech friendly in the sense that we're going to have this 21st century agriculture that's going to be healthy and, certainly be attractive. We're going to put money back in the public schools and make sure we have this class of people who are able to be the workforce for this 21st century industrial economy. And I think we have all the ability here. We just need a U.S. senator who isn't pounding the table for billions to Ukraine, but pounding the table for billions to Georgetown and Spartanburg and everywhere in between. Because look at the roads; they're obscene, folks, and we're 50th in the country, the worst roads in the country.
They're pretty bad. they're pretty bad. 26 is improving a little bit though. The amount of times I've now driven up 26, it's getting better, but
It is. I mean, it's 30 years in the making,
Yeah.
and finally they're getting at it. But, this is a road where, Lindsey, he helped with the port, Well, the port's one thing, but what about all the trucks going to the port? They're going to have to go on a road. And the 26, like all the rest of them, and I drive the 26 every day, I tell you, getting out in the morning and watching the people from Somerville spend 2 hours to go 10 miles at a creep is obscene. Like, yes, like you have to anticipate there's going to be growth and build for it ahead of time, not wait for it to be upon you. Look, I went to MIT, right? I went economics, but I also have a master in city planning. So I worked at HUD. This is like my focus is going to be building South Carolina for a healthy 21st century. I'm a high-speed rail guy, too. I mean, I think we have this ability to really make this amazing rural state, but also we have the best beaches in the country, and we have this high-tech ability. We have it in Greenville. We want to bring the jobs down to low country as well. But all the components are there. People are coming here for a reason. But, we have this, dare I say, fake and gay senator. Yes, I said it, as they say, that is just obsessed with foreign war. And meanwhile, we're dying on the vine here at home. It's a very solvable solution.
So as a follow-up to that, how do you feel about term limits?
I've already committed to them. Look, I signed the pledge. I'm not a career politician. This is not my wheelhouse to get up here. And, but like, I know how to do this stuff effectively. I was the top, I led thousands in the movement. And this is the sort of thing. People have to come and give in Washington, but then go home. Otherwise, you become part of this whole gravy train. And it's intoxicating. I mean, the $7 trillion, everyone's cutting themselves in on this. So, I supported it. I'm limiting myself. But I don't think we should have career politicians. And Lindsey needs to go. 32 years. He's looking for a fifth term.
I hate to do the whole rapid fire questions, but I know we have like 13 minutes left. And so just with just a few additional questions here, term limits is obviously one of the main focuses here, especially in replacing a career politician. Also, if you don't win, what are you going to do next? If you don't end up winning and becoming the next senator, what does Paul Dans do next to support the people of South Carolina?
Look, I'm working on the same issues I'm running on. Like, you don't have to be in the U.S. Senate. Being in the U.S. Senate will help me definitely solve these problems, but they have to be approached. And so, look, I'm going to advocate for shop class. I'm going to advocate to open up Georgetown paper. I'm going to stop these attacks on I'm going to get justice for all the people killed by fentanyl. I'm going to bring the Sacklers to justice. I'm going to lock that criminal Fauci up. These are things I'm going to push for as an advocate. And, what I learned with Heritage and Project 2025 is you can make a massive change even from outside elected office. Now, I'm going to win this thing, and I'm running to win. But look, I've consecrated the last 10 years of my life to doing this, and I'm effective at it. So that's what I'm planning to do.
And we did not talk about the UFO UAP setup quite yet. We haven't really gone there at all. But I do want to just get your general thoughts on all of that as well, because that seems to be kind of going on in the background. But it seems like you're a proponent of full UAP disclosure. Is that correct?
I'm a proponent of all disclosure. I'm sick of the classified information. I'm sick of stuff being kept from people. We're adults. We're all on this earth together, and we need to know. And I'm going to be Mr. Disclosure. I'm not only going to get the UAPs, I'm going to get what happened with Kennedy. Okay, there's still 10,000 docs being hidden on that, notwithstanding all the laws. But do I believe it? I don't know enough to believe. There's enough misinformation both ways. But I do know that, my kids saw something very strange in Charleston last year, along the times when they're doing all these sightings. And, this is, these things, we need to know what's happening. So I'm going to be a tireless advocate. There's nothing more and I've seen when I was in government how they give you the runaround. Oh, we have to declass this. We have to run it by 30 different groups first before we surrender it. It's like, no, this is how they have a separate government, a political class is keeping information from us. So whether it be, what happened in the opioids and the Sacklers, and look, that's a white genocide. Like, they started from the beginning. They said this is an addictive population, these Scots-Irish. We're going to target them. And they did an inverse opium war on us, okay? And it was run ultimately by the Chinese communists. This is a long-term strategy, infiltration of our country. They look on a long-term basis. They have corrupt politicians. And, Lindsey Graham is chief among them. But we just have to start fighting. So I will get to the bottom. Tim Burchett, that's a guy, a buddy of mine. That's somebody you can basically model, because we basically are operating on the same.
I'm a big fan, so that makes a lot of sense. I'm a big fan.
He's a great man.
As it relates to disclosure, my last guest was an Epstein survivor, and that entire episode was super deep and hard to honestly wrap my mind around during certain parts of the human trafficking aspect of that particular conversation. But I'm curious to know a little bit more about your thoughts on disclosure of the Epstein files as well, because it seems like a lot of that's being withheld as also.
From the beginning, I said full disclosure, let the chips fall where they may. Like, there are things that transcend party politics. We have to get to the truth of it. Nothing's worth protecting more than our children. And then I say that as a dad of 5. I really do think that it not only holding this back, it just increases sowing distrust of government too. So even if there were nothing there, you want to disclose it. And I have not been a fan of how that's been treated. I think I'm going to be the champion. And look, it hits our state worse than ever, right? Look, one of the locuses of human trafficking is Myrtle Beach, okay? One of the 5 places in the whole U.S. where the Sacklers targeted was Myrtle Beach, okay? This is a cross-section where a lot of the country is coming, but that's where the most dangerous intersections are for these sort of things. So let's get on it.
Absolutely. So, Paul, I appreciate your time first and foremost today. I want to just give you this last few minutes to wrap things up, maybe hit on certain points that we didn't discuss or questions I didn't ask that you'd like to address with the people listening.
Yeah, I want your listeners to know this is your Senate seat, okay? You're sitting here listening to this, but if you want it, you got to take it back. No one's going to hand it back to you. Paul Dans is standing up to be the nominal name, but it's ours, and I can't win it alone. Like, I'll be up here, putting my money, my life, my family on the line to do this, but I'm fighting for y'all as much as my own kids. What you can do is push the message out. You can volunteer, but most of all, you have to vote. You have to drag yourselves to the polls. I tell the people, hey, the youth are with us, and they're like, oh, it doesn't matter, they don't vote. We just are looking at the same stodgy Fox News watching kind of boomer class that decides who our next senator is going to be. This man has to go. We are totally going to win this. He is below 50%. So as long as we keep him below 50%, I come in second, we will be in a runoff, and all bets are off. Look, he is recognized as a criminal across the world, but it's all on our shoulders in South Carolina to do this removal. So I hope you all take it seriously. Go to pauldans.com. Follow us at Dans for Senate on X, Facebook if you do Facebook, but we're also, we're all over TikTok. You can even find us, but spread the word and network and get your own to commit to voting, and work your parents, work your neighbor, your coworkers, because it's word of mouth. June 9th, you can vote in advance, but you have to register to vote if you're not registered. Register 30 days before May 9th, and appreciate everyone's support, because he's never been weaker, and this will be a referendum. This will be a national referendum. If you're not excited about what's been going on in the Middle East, this is your time to send a message. And I'm going to be a guy who puts us first. I will guarantee you that your life is going to be better in 6 years with Paul Dans in the U.S. Senate.
Well, Paul, once again, thank you so much for the time today. You got a lot more events coming up over the next I guess,
Come
couple
find
months.
us. That's
How,
the
how many
other
days
thing.
is it now until?
Yeah, it's about 62 days, I
Okay.
believe.
Okay.
But go sign up at pauldans.com. You'll get our newsletter and come find us on the trail. I love meeting y'all and take signs and just get out there and knock doors for us because this is going to happen.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Paul, once again, thank you so much for the time and best of luck with the upcoming race.
Great. Thank you, Cameron. Great to be with you today.
Absolutely.